Hi, I'm Eric Houston. I am here today at Atlantic Aviation in Blaine with Sgt Dave Carlson. Sergeant, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So now, obviously, you're a member of the United States Air Force.
That's correct.
What's your job with the Air Force?
So I came in as a 2 Alpha 5 crew chief. In layman's terms, I was a mechanic on C-17 airframe, which is a Boeing design. I have since moved on to be an Air Force recruiter here in Blaine, Minnesota. So that's kind of the role I'm fulfilling now.
Okay, so C-17.
Correct.
This is a big aircraft?
Yeah, huge aircraft. Giant airframe stands, the top of the T-tail is 55 feet in the air.
Okay.
We are a cargo aircraft. We haul anything from humanitarian goods to personnel and supplies to locations all over the world.
Okay, and you're the mechanic on the plane as it's flying. So what kind of, what are you concerned about? What sort of things are you fixing, repairing, keeping up to shape?
Correct. Yeah. So we monitor all the health systems. We monitor the hydraulics, the fuel, all the electrical systems, and make sure all the computers are talking to each other. Specifically the Boeing C-17 is a newer model airframe, so very high tech. A lot of electrical components and computers talking to each other. So it's our job in flight to monitor those systems and make sure we get assets from point A to point B safely.
There you go. And how long have you been doing that?
I did that for 11 years.
Okay, and you're with the recruiting office now. How long have you been there?
I am. So 2 years now, a little over 2 years.
What do you like the most? Well, let's jump back to being a mechanic on the C-17s. What do you like most about that job? Yeah,
that was a great career field. It fit me really well. I really enjoyed, honestly, just the people that you met along the way. Mm-hmm. I thought was the best part. Some of my best friends that I'll have for the rest of my life, I met while I was in that career field. Other parts of the job specifically, just the chance to be able to see the world. I've been to 67 countries. I've had a lot of good times in a lot of those, and just being able to work hands-on with giant airplanes. I never. Those experiences were so cool, and I never thought I would get to do something like that growing up on a small farm in North Dakota. So
sure,
the whole experience in general was pretty awesome.
Yeah, and it sounds like kind of a dream come true. We all grow up looking at these big planes, big machines of any kind. To be not only on it, but to be responsible for it staying in the air. That sounds very exciting.
Yeah, it was great. It was an adrenaline rush for sure at times, and I would trade it for nothing.
Absolutely. So now you're with the recruiting office.
I am.
How does it feel to help these young men and women find a career in the Air Force?
So that's the most rewarding part. I myself didn't know much about the Air Force when I started looking into it. I had a really good friend. I went to college for a year. I had a really good friend who was talking to me one day, and she said, "Hey, why don't you come talk to my Air Force recruiter?" I thought, I don't know a lot about the Air Force, but I would love to check it out, and I did, and that brought me to where I'm at today. So as a recruiter, being able to kind of get back here to the Midwest after being gone for 11 years and talk to individuals that were kind of in my similar situation and help them find their way and help them be successful, that bar none is the best part of the job.
Yeah.
So
just seeing the look on their faces, I imagine, is
exactly.
pretty special.
Exactly,
Absolutely.
And knowing what they have in front of them is big.
So you've already mentioned you're from a small town.
Yep.
And that town, once again, that town is?
So Litchfield, North Dakota.
Okay, so, very small.
Yeah, very small. Population, 100 people, give or take. When I got to high school, I moved to a bigger town called Jamestown, North Dakota. So population's right around 15,000 or so.
Okay.
So
big step up.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Yeah.
Had 16 kids in my class, I believe, in Litchville.
Okay.
When I went to Jamestown, I want to say we had right around 250 kids.
Wow.
So
typical childhood?
Yeah, pretty typical. Grew up loving sports. I was a baseball guy. Loved playing hockey. So I have two brothers, one sister. I'm the oldest of four. Everything was pretty normal. and yeah, I can't think of anything really too extravagant.
Sure. Were the armed services on your radar at all when you were a kid?
So funny story about that. In September 11th, 2001, I was in the 7th grade. I was sitting next to a classmate. His name was Chris Olson, and I remember that morning very well, as most of us who were alive we remember very well. And in the 7th grade, Mr. Two's history class, Chris and I looked at each other, and we said, "Hey, man, we got to do something." And at that time, we didn't know what that looked like, what branch. We didn't even know anything about the military. I mean, we were 7th graders. And fast forward to the age of 18, 19 years old, Chris joined the Marines. I joined the Air Force. And so to answer your question, yes, ever since the 7th grade, it kind of was on my radar. I just did not know in what capacity. And that's kind of where, speaking to the Air Force recruiter in Bismarck, North Dakota, that's kind of when this became a reality for me.
Absolutely, but you just felt that pull toward that kind of service.
I did, yes, sir.
Okay, so why? Now you said that you had a friend who was in the Air Force.
And he ended up joining the Marines.
Sure, but didn't you speak to someone who encouraged you to speak to the Air Force?
I did, yes.
So beyond that, though, why the Air Force? What about the Air Force to you is special?
Right. I took a look at a couple different options before the Air Force. My cousin was a Marine. My brother had joined the Army at that time. We had a bunch of National Guard guys that were always trying to recruit as well. So I was checking that out. But I didn't know much about the Air Force, and I think that the curiosity came into play when my friend, who was in the process of being recruited, she said, "Hey, why don't you come talk to my recruiter?" And I thought, I don't know a lot about the Air Force. I should probably check it out. So I did. I went and checked it out, and I talked to him about what I wanted to do, aviation. I always was interested in airplanes. My grandfather was a pilot, so I talked to him for about 20, 30 minutes about the Air Force and what it had to offer as a career, and I was hooked. I was hooked right then, and I knew that was what I wanted to do, and to this day that holds true.
What were those first few days and weeks in the Air Force like?
Stressful, stressful. Yes, it was good fun though. Looking back, it was some of the most influential moments of my life, for sure. The level of discipline that you become accustomed to in the United States military is unlike any other discipline you might have had before. I was an athlete. I played on a lot of teams. So I thought that I was prepared for what the Air Force was going to be. But when I got down to basic training, there's a lot of yelling going on, a lot of stress flying around. But once you learn attention to detail and you understand what they're asking of you, everything just kind of falls into place after that, and you adapt and you move on, and so.
Well, you've already mentioned a couple of times now being in these situations as a member of the Air Force and making what I think you've called friends for life. What is that feeling of being a member of the Air Force? Is it like a family?
Absolutely. It's your family away from your family. I spent a lot of time overseas, 875 days to be exact. So there's a lot of time spent with your buddies and your friends, and small Connex dorms, and anywhere in the world, and so when you spend that amount of time with your best friends, I mean they become more than your best friends. Those are your brothers and sisters, and that's how I see them.
Absolutely. Would you say, is the Air Force for everyone?
To an extent, it could be. The Air Force is for individuals, in my personal opinion, the Air Force is for individuals who are looking to stay competitive. The Air Force as an employer is going to, in a branch of the military, is going to allow you to stay competitive in your career field. It's going to allow you to advance. It's going to allow you to seek professional development. So if you're the type of person that likes to wake up every day doing something new and making a real impact on the world that you live in, the Air Force is for you.
I mean, it sounds like an enormously exciting career.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. There's 135 different career opportunities in the Air Force. I ended up in the aviation world, and we are the Air Force, so that is generally our biggest piece of our biggest career set. But we have everything from satellites to being to firefighter, first responders, police officers, paralegals, dentists, doctors. It's across the board, and it is a very exciting career field. There's a ton of opportunities to pick from.
In your time in the Air Force, have you ever experienced combat?
Not frontline combat.
Okay.
No, sir. We were in my career field. I was purely an aviator. My job was to get those assets and personnel from point A to point B, to get the warfighter to the front lines to do their job. So we were there in support of the individuals who had to get to where they needed to be in order to eliminate the threat.
Sure. That sounds like a real, I can't think of a better way to say it, but a heavy responsibility. How does it feel to be supporting your brothers and sisters who are on the front lines?
Yeah, it is heavy. There's a lot of logistics involved. There's a lot of responsibilities involved in making sure that they are able to, and when I say they, I mean the individuals who are meant to carry out the tasks at hand. It's very important that we make sure we get them there so they can do that. And it meant everything. You know, I can't tell you how many times we would get done flying a mission, and we would get back to Northern Europe, and we would stop and we would start checking into our hotels, or we'd be grabbing food, and you pull your phone out and you look, and there's a headline in the news, and you and your crew members, your family at the time, you look at each other and you think, we just did that. We just supported that, and it's a good feeling.
Yeah, I imagine it's like being a part of history.
Yeah, I mean, the books will write themselves, so we'll see if we make it in there. But for the time being, it just feels good to be able to support your brothers and sisters and being able to do their job.
Absolutely. Now, a quick digression. We've been talking, obviously, a lot about the Air Force.
Sure.
And you and I, we've been emailing each other back and forth for a couple of weeks, setting all of this up.
Right.
And at the bottom of your email there, it says, United States Air Force.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's always said this, but I noticed the last couple of emails, it also says Space Force.
Correct. Yep.
So are you also recruiting for Space Force?
We are looking for Space Force individuals, correct? Yeah, we have one Space Force recruiter in the local area, and how it works right now is the individuals that are interested in the Space Force specifically, they would come through me. I would help them figure out what avenue they would like to pursue, and then once we get them to a certain point in the recruiting process, I then transfer them over to the Space Force recruiter.
Okay. Do you want to go to space?
I wouldn't turn it down. I wouldn't turn it down. So if Jeff Bezos is listening, I'd love to go out there with you.
Now let's drop down a few thousand feet. Let's talk about flying.
Sure.
So you must do a lot of flying.
Used to, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. In the recruiting job, it's more of I'm flying a desk these days. So.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Sure, but you spent a lot of time in the air.
I did, yes. 2,145 flight hours to be exact.
Wow. That's getting on near 100 days in the air.
Yes, yep,
Yeah.
You're correct.
Have you always been attracted to flight?
I think so. Yeah, I don't know. I remember when I was new in the Air Force and I had gotten through basic training and gotten through my technical school where I learned how to do my job. Mm-hmm. And I got to my first duty location, which was Charleston Air Force Base in South Carolina. And I was doing a follow-on training there, and I had a really good instructor, one of my role models. His name was Sgt Douglas, J.D. Douglas, and he was a flyer in his pastime. So he would ask us, you know, what's your goals? What do you want to do? And I couldn't think of anything other than to say, I just want to fly. I just want to travel around the world. I want to do what I can to make a difference. And I felt as though I'd accomplished that for sure. So yes, to answer your question, I was always drawn to that.
Sure. Now, you know, we've talked about what your job was when you were up there. Certainly a lot going on, a lot of responsibility. Did you ever get to take that moment to just, you know, appreciate where you were and what it was you were doing, and, you know, look out the window and watch it all?
Yes, sir, absolutely. I can think of a couple times specifically, and I have some really good pictures of this stuff too, but there was a few times when we were flying over Greenland coming back from Europe. We had been gone for 8, 9, 10 days, and when you're coming back home and you look to the north and you can see the northern lights and you can see them dancing around, and I don't know, I'm not sure if you've ever seen the northern lights at 35,000 feet, but
I haven't seen the northern lights at 1 feet.
Oh yeah, so it's uncanny. It was beautiful, and along with the southern hemisphere, flying to Puerto Rico after the hurricanes to provide humanitarian relief. And we were on our way back, and I remember looking out the window and seeing the most gorgeous sunset I've ever seen in my entire life. And so yes, you do take time to just sit back. It's quiet. There's nothing going on. You look out the window and you just appreciate it all.
Absolutely. So you've traveled a lot. You've traveled all over the world.
I have.
I would imagine, you know, the United States and the Midwest, that's obviously a very special place in your heart.
It is.
Where have you been, you know, that, like, where in the world would you say outside of the U.S. has been your favorite place to visit as part of your service?
You know, I get asked that question a lot. Yeah. It's a tough question too. So many great places in the world, a lot of different cultures. But if you made me pick one on a list, I loved going to Iceland. I stopped in Iceland, in Reykjavik, Iceland, once upon a time, and we got to go to the Blue Lagoon, ate some great food. It was a good time. One of my favorite places for sure. If you ever get a chance, you have to go. You'll never forget it.
Yeah.
People were great. Food's great. You'd have a good time.
Absolutely. Well, and you can say that about Iceland. You can probably say it about the Air Force too. It sounds like you've had a marvelous career, marvelous life as a member of the United States Air Force.
Yeah, very fortunate. The Air Force, I especially being in the recruiting job now, I genuinely never forget what the Air Force has offered me and the opportunities it gave me to succeed. Now, it doesn't hand it to you on a platter. It takes a lot of work, and I know we've been talking about a lot of the good times for sure. But it's not, it's like I tell my recruits, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. You will have to work hard and you will have to compete, but you will enjoy the fruits of your labor once you accomplish that stuff. And I'm very fortunate.
Terrific. Well, Sergeant, I want to thank you very much for sharing your story, your life with us today. I'm sure everybody watching at home has really gotten something out of it. And for the young people watching at home, reach out to Sergeant Carlson if you're interested in a career in the Air Force. I'm sure he'll be able to get you set up. Yeah, that's right. We have my offices in Blaine, Minnesota. You can catch me on Instagram at blaine.airforce or just Google United States Air Force, Blaine, Minnesota, and we'll get you set up and answer any kind of questions that you might have. All right. Well, thank you again, Sergeant. Thank you. Really very much appreciate it. Absolutely.